All right, let's do a little peace or panic as we take a look at some key names, big-time players that have been struggling as of late. And so where do we come out on, speaking of that New England Raiders game, Davante Adams, few games in a row, very disappointing. Last week, 4.9 points. Thankfully, I went in on Jacoby Myers, not Davante Adams. So I would say this is absolute panic if you're a Davante Adams owner. How do you feel?
I would completely agree with that. I mean, we've seen this time and time again with Jimmy Garoppolo, where he just does not throw the ball downfield and looks to the short slot guy, and that is Jacoby Myers in this offense. Davante Adams is not getting the love that he deserves. Maybe that will change if Jimmy Garoppolo is out this week and he could have a nice bounce back game with a different quarterback. But going forward, I do not have a lot of faith in the Davante Adams Jimmy Garoppolo connection.
No. And maybe you try to trade him and salvage it, but I would not count on him the rest of the way to be what you expected, a top, first round, second round player. All right. Speaking of the first, top player, Justin Jefferson, first overall in many leagues. And not only is he injured, but there are rumblings that he could be out for the season. And I totally buy into this. The Vikings season is unraveling. I know they won this past week somehow, some way. But it's not looking good for them. The Vikings are in trouble, and I was surprised to hear the news that Kirk Cousins wasn't going to get traded. I still feel like that could change, but as of now, he's not going to be traded since his contract is going to be up. So there's just a lot of kind of smoke and concern with the Vikings, and so I think there's a major level of panic for Justin Jefferson. Would you agree?
I agree. As a Justin Jefferson owner, I am very scared for what the rest of the season is going to look like with him. But I also just can't really bring myself to do anything about it because he could come back in 4 weeks and be fine and be fantastic for the rest of the season, just like he was. And I don't want to be the guy that traded away Justin Jefferson, especially when my team is in a position right now to compete for a championship. I have a good record. So I really don't know what to do with him. I mean, the smart move probably would be to trade him because you're going to get good value for him. I mean, you'll never get the value that you actually deserve for Justin Jefferson in any trade, even if he was healthy. But yeah, it's a really difficult situation to be in right now. I'm probably going to field some trade offers for him this week, and if the right one comes, then I'll accept it. But I wouldn't, overly panic and be like, I have to get anything for him because that's just a little bit unreasonable. Because if he does come back, he's going to be a top 5 receiver, no matter what the Vikings look like offensively.
Trade him, please trade him. Figure it out. Get the best value you can. Shop him across the league. Trade him. I'm panicking for Justin Jefferson. I feel like I made a comment about him a couple weeks ago, and I feel like yikes, it's coming true. Sorry about that, Justin. All right, DK Metcalf. A little bit of a weak game. 10 fantasy points. 4 receptions on 10 targets. So on one end, you go, wow, 10 targets. That's great. But yikes, Geno, not necessarily, they're just not in sync. I guess you give a little credit to the defense, but that's discouraging. And then there was one key play where DK was wide open for a touchdown. Geno did not find him. DK got a little frustrated, understandably so. With that said, though, I'm not panicking. Metcalf's unbelievable. He's one of my favorite players. He's the real deal. And Seattle, think about it. They still get to play Arizona. They get to play, I think you could score on the Rams a little bit. So they'll be all right. They'll be fine, and Metcalf will be fine. So no panic there. Speaking of the Rams, what about Puka Nacua? He had a nice game with Cooper, first game back, but then this past weekend, only 6.6 fantasy points, and he panicked there.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it a few weeks ago when we were talking about how Puka Nacua was going to look with Kupp coming back. I said he was the number one guy to probably trade away if you had him on your roster. I'm not going to panic with him because my opinion was that he's going to be a wide receiver 2 flex type with Kupp back. And I think that's how he's performing. You're going to get some big weeks from him. You're going to get some letdowns depending on the game plan. If you're counting on him as your wide receiver 1, then you definitely need to panic. But I don't think you need to go ahead and, just completely get rid of him or bench him. He's definitely a solid flex play still.
All right, last one. Dameon Pierce in Houston. Now, Houston is playing really well. They are a good team. Stroud is good. Nico Collins is good. Dell, when he comes back from his concussion, is good. Dalton Schultz is playing great, but they're not running the ball particularly well. Devin Singletary was much more involved. Not that he was great either, but he was much more involved this past Sunday. And Pierce is not doing anything. He's not running well. He's not getting any production fantasy-wise. He's almost, I feel like he's droppable. The question becomes, is he droppable? Now, we talked about how weak the running back position is, so it's hard to drop anybody that's actually out on the field. I'm looking for healthy bodies that actually play. Just give me that guy. But if you, especially if you're in a 12-man league, I'm not sure how you keep Pierce any longer. I don't see any indication other than it's a pretty good offense, but he's not the reason it's a good offense. He's not a part of that. So I'm absolutely panicked with Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to be panicked. I mean, Devin Singletary outsnapped him this week. He's playing in the key spots in the offense on third down. When, they need to get the ball, they give it to Devin Singletary. Dameon Pierce has just not been productive, and they're probably going to go with the guy who they paid in the offense, Singletary, over the guy who was a late round pick last year by an old regime. This is a new head coaching staff, and they brought Singletary in. They don't really have any ties to Pierce, and it's not like he was a first round running back, high draft capital guy. I don't think you drop him this week. I think you can hold on to him for like one more week. And if Singletary, just dominates snaps again, then he's probably droppable. Because like you said, there's, no one really better on waivers that you're going to be getting than Dameon Pierce at this point. Maybe a couple guys who are a 1 week rental, but I think Pierce still has, the chance to work himself back into good graces in the offense. So I would keep him on your roster for now.
The other thing to remember is toward the end of last year, he fell off a cliff. He was very good early last year. He was lighting it up. Thankfully, I traded him last year, but he fell off late in that year. So, and he hasn't returned. He hasn't gotten it going. So, and they're on a bye this week. So I'd highly consider dropping him. I really would.